everybody, this is Patrick from Sasquatch in the Wild. And no, you don't need to adjust your screen. I am sunburned. This is what happens when you work outside in a garden center. So, the last Bigfoot 101, I talked a little bit about Bryan, and I'm going to talk more about Bryan. And I'm going to talk about Charlie Raymond from Kentucky. So, Charlie told us to go up to Kenosha Pass and camp. And we did that. I told this to Jim Brown. I told this to Bryan. And the last time we went camping, Bryan and I, that was his last camping trip total. He actually passed away January of 2021. And we went camping like August of 2020. So we decided that's where we were going to go. Now, what in the heck is in my mouth? Neither one of us knew that Bryan was sick. So we drove all the way out there. We really wanted Jim to go out there, but he couldn't do it. So it was just me and Bryan. Or Bryan and I. And we found a spot. We drove halfway up this mountain. And we found this neat little spot where we could pull off, park his SUV. And we set my tent up across the way. So in the meantime, we had made dinner and everything. And I set up my teepee. And the teepee draws a lot of attention. And it's really weird. Sasquatch, for whatever reason, likes teepees. They build teepees, and there's some teepees that are, when you look at them, they look like a true, doesn't make sense type of teepee. You see these teepees that are being posted all over YouTube, all over Colorado, and they're elaborate. You'll see shelves inside them that were put in. Sasquatch didn't make those. You'll see them where the teepees are so tight with the wood and have a doorway where they can walk in and out. That's not a trait that Sasquatch makes. That's not what they do. So even though you see these gigantic teepees out there, and they're all over the place. They are literally all over Colorado. They're everywhere. The teepees you want to look for are the ones that are not near campsites. The ones that are kind of away from everything, and they're more open. So you'll see, like, I'll put up a picture of one of these two sides, but the teepees you want to find are the ones that are really opened up. Charlie found a whole bunch on the opposite side of Kenosha Pass, and I still would like to go out there sometime and hike back to where I think they're at. He gave me rough directions where they're at. But I don't know if they're still there. Now, my personal thought is, I have seen a First Nations person, and I saw this person at a totally different campsite. And the thing that threw me off is he actually had a painted face. His face was painted black, and he was wearing a reed headdress, which went from literally all the way around his head. And it was cool. It's cool looking. And all he was wearing, believe it or not, he was wearing a loincloth. That's it. He had no shirt on. He had no pants on. He wasn't wearing socks or shoes. He was running around in the woods in Colorado with nothing more than a loincloth. Now, I don't know if the Ute tribes do that at all. I don't know if they do or don't. But when I saw this guy, I actually had an encounter with Mike and Trenton out near that same spot. And I was in my tent clearing stuff out, and Trenton was out on his dad's truck way over, and Mike was out on a hike somewhere behind the tent. Out of nowhere, I hear a vocal. I hear two vocals. First vocal is, "I'm gonna say hey, hey." And I was like, what? I stopped what I was doing in my tent. I shot out of the tent. I looked over at Trenton, and he looked at me funny, and I was like, "Did you hear it?" And he goes, "Bink." I was like, "Trenton," and he's like, "What?" And then we both heard, "Anna say hey hey ho," and I was like, we were both looking now over way across in the woods, and I'm like, "Dude," and he's like, we both sat there like stunned, and 2 seconds later, Mike comes walking around the tent, and he goes, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "Did you hear the vocals?" And he's like, "No." And I said, "Dude, one of them said, 'Anna say hey hey.' The other one said, 'Anna say hey hey ho.'" That's exactly what I heard. Mike was like, "Are you kidding me?" I went, "No, that's exactly what I heard. It was that crazy. It was an odd vocal. It sounded very like First Nations. Somebody back in the woods was like calling this." And I thought it was bizarre because I've never heard Sasquatch use English at all. I've never, or anything close to an actual wording of anything. So that threw me off. And he was back in the areas where the Sasquatch do come up and around. So I was like, oh my God, I could not believe it. Mike missed out on that one. Trenton and I got to hear the second one, but I got to hear both. But besides the teepee structures, they do like my teepee, and for whatever reason, they like to come up. They like to unzip things. They like to open up vents and close the vents. They know how to work the Velcro. They know how to work the zippers. The only time that they've never done they did one thing where they opened up the outer vestibule zipper to the leads outside, and I heard their hand reach inside and was kind of playing around trying to find things. And I kind of wish I would have had a stuffed animal or a stuffed toy. I would have left it in there for him to grab, and he could have held it and played with it, whatever. Yeah, they're attracted to my teepee. It's weird. So, we set up my teepee. So, Brian's getting his. He has a blow up mattress, and he's on the ground. I'm up on a cot. We're both laying the same way. Brian's side, he's facing technically the road that kind of cuts down between us and where his car is, and then I'm the side of my tent or my cot is against the woods. Nobody drives that road at night, and if they do, I don't remember them doing it. But there were a couple campers that were way above us, and there was nobody below us because we could see down where the road leading up to us. You have to take a whole bunch of turns to get to where we're at. So it was getting dark, and Brian's working on his cot or on his blow-up mattress. I'm working on my cot, and to my right we hear "whoo," and we both stop what we're doing. And Brian looks at me, and I look at Brian, and I said, he goes, "What was that? Was that an owl?" And I said, "I don't think so." And he goes, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes. I know what an owl sounds like. That's not an owl." Now, Sasquatch do not make good owl sounds. They don't. They're terrible at it. Absolutely terrible. But we hear "whoo" again. And then "whoo" again. "Whoo, whoo, whoo, whoo." And Brian said, "That's an owl." I said, "No, it's not, Brian." Owls, when they hoot, they fly up to a branch, and they are up here, and they'll hoot up there. They hoot at a higher elevation than we are. Then they'll fly down, they'll fly over to another branch, and they'll do it until a mate answers. But this owl is making a straight line straight to us. "Whoo, whoo, whoo, whoo." And it started way off, about a guesstimation, maybe 100 yards out, and he's coming our direction. Now, we can't see out that because it's all trees and thick trees. And I was like sitting there going, oh my God. And Brian's like, "What is it then?" And I said, "Dude, that's a Sasquatch." And he goes, "You're lying." And I said, "No, I'm not lying. That is a Sasquatch." He goes, "Are you serious?" I went, "Yeah. That's a Bigfoot." And he's coming in. And he went, "Whoo, whoo." He called out "whoo" 12 times before he got to the side of my tent, just beyond this down log. He went "whoo," and he actually went "whoo" loud enough that we both were like, "Oh my God." And Brian's freaking out. And I said, "You're doing it wrong." They don't understand what I'm saying. But then at that moment, we hear "whoo," a higher pitch, which made me think female, coming from a tree that where I had a trail camera at, looking back. So Brian, we both looked over, and he said, "Why is there one over there?" I said, "Because I put a trail camera over there." He's like, "Oh, that's crazy!" And we heard this one turn and walk back out. And again, he hooted 12 times before he faded off into the distance. This one over here, I don't know where that one went to. No idea. So we ended up going to sleep. Nothing happened the rest of the night. The next morning, we get up, and he's all like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we were being hooted at." And that was really a Sasquatch. I said, "Yes, Brian, that was really a Sasquatch." Oh my God, that was like a high point for him. He thought that was the greatest thing on earth. So we make breakfast, and I said, "I still want to walk out there and see what's over there." He said, "Okay." So we packed up our stuff. He grabbed a couple things. I grabbed a drink, and we went walking out from right behind my tent. And as we got over there, you could see where something had walked through the woods, straight back out the way it came in. Now, for a lot of people don't know this, Sasquatch will go in and out the same way. They won't come in and then walk over there. Or walk over here. They will come in and they'll do whatever they're going to do. Now, at one location, I had a big family group come in and they broke, and they scattered all over between the tents and running in crazy. They were just going crazy. But they were doing a lot of things that I kind of prompted them to do. And they did things that I did not expect them to do. Like moving a tree, and the tree was down already when I poured blueberries across this log. And they brought the log over, sat it down, and there was a Sasquatch right outside my tent eating. And I heard him sucking his fingers and then licking. There's only two things that do that I'm aware of. Primates do that, and people do that. And it's just weird that they were doing that. Strange, because that's what I was doing when I was eating blueberries. I was licking my fingers, and they had juices growing out, just cleaning them up. I was way back there in the woods. There was nobody around me that saw that. But somebody did. One of the Sasquatches did. But up on this mountain, when we started hiking back there, we followed it all the way out. And we hooted all the way out. We went hoo, 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 all the way out. Got to a point, and I wanted to keep going around this bend. And Brian stopped and said, "Patrick, I can't go any further." I was like, "Really? Why?" And he goes, "I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling sick." And I was like, "Are you coming down with a cold?" And he goes, "No, I don't know what it is." So we turned, and we decided to go back. So when we did that, I broke off, and I went down about 15 to 20 feet below him, just down the hill. And then we started walking back. As we were walking back, I started to see weird little structures. A little structure on the ground that wrapped around a tree. I found some ground art, and I'll post these things. And as we went back, we finally got back to the campsite, and Brian went into the tent, and he passed out. He was out like a light. I thought it was weird. I didn't understand what he could have that would cause this. So while he was sleeping, I wandered around. I went all the way around one little forest, found some other little structures, photographed all kinds of things. I even I took out a bunch of tangerines, and I set up these oranges on a tree break. And this thing was maybe about 6-7 feet in height and went straight across at probably about 10 to 12 feet. And I took these oranges and I just kind of opened them up. Like, this is a whole orange. This is one that's kind of open. This is what you do. And I did it all the way down. And then I made like stone people. And I did some other things. Like I made this, like these Rice Krispie treat things. I made them look like a squirrel. And some other things. And I set them all up on this log. See if they would eat any of that stuff. They didn't touch one thing. They touched nothing. So even though I had that all set up, Brian came out finally, and we started making dinner again.
So this is our master chef for the night.
Oh yes.
and we don't like that food that's right there. He's baking up buns for his hamburger. Then I guess I will receive the beating of my lifetime right there. Master chef of the night. my tent. We got hooted at last night.
Hootie and the Blowfish was on it.
That's right, Hootie and the Blowfish. Heard 12 what I would call non-owl-like sounds, but it sounded very human-like. And the 13th one came from the left of that tent. The other came from the right. And it was funny because we could hear it walking off in the distance, heading off into the trees over here. Zoom out. So it's back out into these trees here. So off he went, giving off these little owl sounds, and they were constant. And the funny thing was, it was no more taller. We both think it was maybe, I don't know, like this, whatever the height was of it, it was hooting as it walked away. And it wasn't like gaining altitude like an owl would get. It wasn't high at all. It was like almost like our height, like somewhere in the 5 foot, maybe 6-7 foot range. And it was really strange on how it'd walk off into the wilderness, just hooting and making this woo, 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 woo sound. And as he walked away, the other one didn't do all the sound calling, but he just did the one hoot that was just on the opposite side of the tent.